Sky Howdy, and welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio. And we are back with another wonderful and amazing episode. In this case, we have the icon of paranormal broadcasting, Dave Scott, the man from Spaced Out Radio. And if you guys aren't subbed to his channel already, what the hell planet are you living on? Get over there and sub him. If you need any more inducement, I'm on his show twice a week on Tuesday and Thursday nights. During the third hour, I present a cryptid and Bigfoot report. And once you come over and check that out, you'll notice that the rest of the show is always awesome and you want to be there all the time. I'm in the chat room constantly. So if you want to catch me just hanging out in the chat room, you can come there and pester me too. And then I'll be like, hey, quit pestering me. Pay attention to the show. It's awesome. So with that, and here we are, due to an amazing time warp, we've been able to actually transport ourselves a week back in time to when we were both actually where we live at. And when you see this show, Dave will be in Las Vegas kicking his heels up, and I will be in Nebraska with a bunch of the other Bigfoot cognoscenti presenting information to the general public over there in the Nebraska Bigfoot Museum. And so with all that long-winded intro, welcome back to World Bigfoot Radio, Dave Scott.
Thank you very much. Duke, I gotta say, man, I have so much fun when you come on the air with me a couple times a week for the Cryptid Report. You are a true friend in this field, and you alone, I bet you have brought at least close to 500-600 subscribers over to us from World Bigfoot Radio, and a lot of them follow what we do now, all because of you. So I owe you a lot, my friend, and to be able to call you a friend and a mentor in the Bigfoot world, man, I couldn't ask for anything better. So thank you for everything that you have done for not only myself personally, but for Spaced Out Radio as well.
Wow, thanks, Dave. Glowing review coming from you. And I got to return the glory there onto you. I will reflect it unto you, because I notice in my chat rooms more and more there's regulars from Spaced Out Radio that are there all the time now. So it's working both ways. They're enjoying both of our shows.
That's the way it should work, you know? I mean, good networking with good people who are getting, I believe, the proper messages towards what we're trying to accomplish in these fields. And you know what? We don't always have to agree, but as long as we can disagree respectively and really show respect for one another, I think that's what makes it so good. I mean, you and I are kind of cut from the same cloth. We agree with a lot of the stuff that's out there, and I'm still amazed when all of a sudden you're bringing out all these new creatures, man, and I'm like, what the Sam hell is this? I mean, it's always entertaining. And honestly, if we can share audiences and they're getting a proper information, which I know they're going to get from you, which I know they're going to get from us, that's what teamwork and bringing the proper information to the public is all about.
Absolutely agree. And the other thing a lot of people in either community don't really realize is that, well, maybe you're into Bigfoot, but you're not into ghosts, or maybe you're into ghosts, but not Bigfoot, but you like UFOs a little bit, or maybe you're into UFOs, but you're not into Bigfoot or ghosts. I got a newsflash for you. All this stuff crosses over. And the more you start paying attention, the more you start realizing that.
Oh, yeah. I had someone very close to the whole government situation. I can't give his name out, but one of my sources that I have who works very closely in this whole UFO world, he gave me a stone cold stunner for a phone call about 4 weeks ago. And he kind of put it like, he goes, Dave, what if the phenomena is everything? What if it's all of us? And it honestly, it was like getting a stone cold stunner, because so many people want to take their opinion, Duke, and they want to run with their opinion that it's just ghosts or it's just cryptids or it's just UFOs. No, this is all tied together. We may not know how it works, but what I've kind of learned through this, man, is if you take a puzzle and we've got the outer lining of the puzzle already done, we're trying to fill in the pieces. But the problem that we're doing is our puzzle, we're not looking at a picture. We've flipped it over and we're trying to put that ugly gray backside together. And that's how we're trying to structure it all. And once we're able to add the color to it, who knows where this is going to go. But for people out there who are still naive enough to think that none of this is intertwined, that everything is still quite sectional, there's a lot of information you're missing. A lot of information.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. And I've noticed that with some of my friends that have been like in one community and then got interested in doing other stuff. And I was just talking to one of them earlier tonight. He's been a guest on both our shows, Bigfoot in Germany, Robert Boston. And he was doing the Bigfoot things for years and years and years and years. Now he's getting interested in the paranormal and ghost research. So he's going out and doing some of that. And he said, you know what I'm noticing? They're using the same equipment. They're getting the same weird results. How's that possible?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing, Duke, where all of a sudden you see, people who are out camping and their campground gets surrounded by Sasquatch. Then all of a sudden the Sasquatch start going haywire and running away. And the next thing the people know, there's a UFO over above them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
If they're tied together.
No. Yeah, there's definitely a connection there. And the more we work on it and come out with the information, the more we can kind of establish what that pattern is and figure out where all those little pieces of the jigsaw puzzle actually go into that big picture. And that's what we're trying to do. Get the actual information from the people. I especially try and find the people that are boots on the ground and butt in the field. They get out there and actually do it. Because, besides the First Nations people that have got all of the information on this for thousands of years of interaction, the best thing you can do is to get out in the field and look for yourself. See what you can find. See how much of the stuff you find is the same stuff the other guys are finding. You're going to find out a lot of it is the same stuff, even down to how they structure tree structures and stuff across continents. We were talking about this the other night. Dr. Igor Burtsev over there in Siberia sent me a picture of a asterisk structure that he got, which looks pretty much identical to one we got here in Montana.
Well, I can tell you this, Duke. The biggest reason why we haven't figured out where we are, where we're going with this, and I don't know why we still have this attitude after all these years. It didn't take, and let me preface this by saying to your listeners, I'm not a researcher. Okay. I am an experiencer and I am a trained journalist who worked in radio for 10 years and now hosts a radio show on these subjects. So I always like to make it clear to people that I'm not a researcher. But what I do is I talk to a lot of people. And Duke, you're in our chat room every night. I've done close to 1,500 shows, if not more, regarding the entire phenomena. And I can tell you this, the biggest question mark that I have for everything that goes on is why are we not paying more attention to what First Nations people are saying?
Bingo.
And it doesn't matter whether you are part of the BFRO, if you're a part of MUFON, if you're a ghost hunter or whatever. The people who have been here for so long, they have stories and they have information and they have understanding of what even causes the phenomena to happen. There's certain things they don't know, okay, that's not perfect, but they have a hell of a lot more answers than what we give them credit for. And if even a quarter of the people researching out there took the time to actually get to know some of the elders in their area, gain that trust, and started asking questions regarding the phenomena, eventually the elders will give that information if they trust you. And when they give that information, it could open up an entire new ballgame for the way we are researching this creature. And let's just be matter of fact about it. We call it a creature, but in reality, we don't know what it is. We don't know if it's from here. We don't know if it's an animal. We don't know if it's a mammal or a marsupial We don't know if it is from space. We don't know if it's magical, supernatural, or whatever it is. We have theories, but for anybody to try and pull matter of fact type information, that's where the problems start in this field. We don't know what it is. We can only assume. And the problem that we have in this field, and people who've listened to my show, I'm like a broken record here right now. And Duke, I know you're going to agree with what I'm saying because we have talked ad nauseum about this. Opinion is not science. And until we take opinion out of the field, we're never going to get ahead further than what we are. Okay? There's a reason why, after centuries, we haven't found a body. There's a reason why we've fired guns at these creatures and we've never dropped one right in front of us. Sure, there's legends that it happened, but there's no proof that it happened. We have so many mysteries and questions regarding this creature and the creatures around it, whether it's Gugway, Dogman, Chupacabra, Little People, gnomes, whatever it is. All we have is experiences and anecdotal evidence. And until we start to open our minds and realize that there might be something more to this, but we just don't know what that answer is, we're going to keep going in this brutal circle that Bigfoot research and cryptid research has been in, especially for the last 50, 60 years.
Yeah. Well, and that attitude is changing too. Some of the leading guys have got the very open mind and are actual scientists and will look at all the evidence. An example of that is Dr. Igor Burtsev from over in Russia. And he's even been on my show on the 100th episode. And I asked him point blank, why do we not have a body? Why is it so hard to get pictures and video of these guys? And he said, because they have paranormal abilities we don't understand yet, period, point blank. There you go. Top scientist on earth that knows about Bigfoot, been out in the field since the 1960s, doing actual field research, looking into, and that guy knows a lot. We had, on one of my groups, we had a video that was a compilation of 5 pieces of video that had been taken all over the former Soviet Union. And in the chat room, somebody said, well, that doesn't do us any good because we're not over there. We can't research it. And I said, I bet Igor's looked into them already. Hey, Igor, have you checked this out? Well, within 10 minutes, he saw the post, showed up and went, yeah, I've investigated all 5. This one's legit. This one's for sure. This one's iffy. He already knew all about them. He had already done, breakdown on all of it. So there's people out there that are doing this that are really on top of it. And although we cannot say with certainty what Bigfoot is, by process of elimination, we can tell you what it is not. It is not a big ape running around the woods. We would have had one in a zoo 150 years ago if it was just some kind of gorilla or something running around the woods. We've been killing the biggest animal on earth, a whale, since before we even had gunpowder technology. We were out there in canoes with spears killing them. Humans are excellent killers. If this was an ordinary animal, we would have one in a zoo. So it's not some kind of big ape running around out there. And this is part of the reason that the people need to look at the paranormal side of this. Because if it was just some kind of big ordinary animal, even a really smart ape, we would have had one in a zoo by now. That's absolutely indisputable.
Agreed. And why has it been so hard to capture one? That's what doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all. Okay. And the creature isn't perfect. The monster, whatever you want to call it, is not perfect. Nothing is perfect, Duke. And I think you'll agree with me when I say that. There's no reason why that we don't have a body yet or a body part. Look, you get a pack of 15, 18 wolves. They should be able to rip one apart.
I would be so certain. Maybe a little one. There was just a report in from a ranger in Yellowstone that talked about I believe it was 96, he found a full-grown male grizzly bear crushed. Its head was caved in. Its body was mashed flat. It had been turned essentially to paste. There was a ripped-out tree lying right next to it, and there were 18-inch Sasquatch tracks all around it. So
But
wolves, no, they'll just boot them like a chihuahua. Are you kidding?
I understand with what you're saying, but I'm just using that as a casual example.
Right.
Okay, wolves can take down a bear. A pack of wolves can take down a grizzly. A
Yeah.
pack of wolves can take down a buffalo,
Yeah.
albeit an elderly or a young buffalo. They're not taking down a healthy one.
Yeah.
Okay, they know how to hunt in packs.
Right. So does
Okay?
Sasquatch. That's the problem with why wolves are never going to take one down.
Well, I mean, but it's, you know what? There's so many theories that we have to run through. And look, you know, God, I have so many questions about this creature. I really do. Okay. And it always goes back to what one of my First Nations friends had told me. You don't see Sasquatch, it allows you to see it.
Very true. They do
And
occasionally make mistakes. Little ones will make mistakes occasionally. They get caught. Some of them like to razz humans and they'll wait until you're almost right there and then run across the road because it's funny. They're doing that on purpose. They're doing that on purpose. It's not, you got a 2 mile strip of road. Why do they have to run out in front of you? They could wait until you go by. You'd never see them.
well, I mean, but what is it? We can only assume, Duke. We're all on assumption right now of what everything is, right? And we could have this big, profound, what is Bigfoot type of poetry conversation. We really could. I'm still trying to figure out what we're searching for,
Right. Well,
right?
if you go with science, you should then conclude that, you might want to look at the Melba Ketchum DNA study. There's 113 samples in that, and not all of them were hair. There was a toenail that was also one of the samples. DNA, same thing. And, that was a very legit study from a woman who, when the 9/11 attack happened, was at the top of their list of forensic scientists they wanted to call in to figure out whose remains were whose. Okay. She was at the top of the list, number one on the list. So that's how good her credentials are. Plus, she's got veterinary science background. She's testified in court with DNA evidence that have put people in jail. Okay. So she's got plenty of credentials. And according to the people all over the country that sent in those samples, including people like Robert Kreider, Randy Brisson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and they all collected it, legit samples and everything, and they all came back the same. You got mother, mitochondrial DNA, human. Father, unknown, Heinz 57 mix. And apparently the combination was put together about 15 to 13,000 years ago. So that's already done. It's already been sequenced. It's in zoo bank. So if you believe the science and trust the science, we already know basically what Sasquatch is.
Yes, but the scientific community still does not.
No.
That's the harsh reality of it. But you know what? Here's the thing. You take the late great Dr. John Bindernagel. Okay, he was a flesh and blood type of guy. He felt that we were looking for a flesh and blood type creature. But you know what? He never ruled out the woo.
No.
Ever. He never ruled it out. And he said, look, I'm allowed to have my opinion on what it is, but until we get a body, until we get more evidence, he goes, I cannot rule out anything else. I just
Yep.
can't. Okay. And more people need to be that way. I don't care if you're a weekend warrior, if you're a part of the BFRO, if you are just somebody who has an interest in this creature, or maybe you've had an experience yourself. All right. We need to literally start opening up the idea that there is something special about this creature, and we need to focus a little bit more on that.
Totally agree. But, again, the thing with everybody going, well, we need a body, we need evidence. We've already got it. We've already got the evidence. We've already had the DNA study. My team has found Sasquatch hair, big chunks of it. We had 2 Ziploc baggies full. The guy that went back with the Ziploc baggies, well, it all got confiscated. He turned part of it over to a lab to have DNA test on it. Next thing you know, the guy that was doing the DNA test is out of a job, and his family are starving along with them. Then they showed up at his house with the goon squad, pointed rifles in his face, said, hand over the hair samples. So here's the perennial problem, and nobody wants to believe there's a cover-up. There absolutely is. I've seen examples of it constantly. They don't want physical evidence out there. You can talk until you're blue in the face. When you start showing up with physical evidence, they really don't like that.
We need to start moving the field forward. The question is, do we really want to know that this creature exists? Now, I want you to think about that for a second. For those of us who have had encounters, we already know it does. But do we really want the rest of the world to find out that there is this 7 to 15-foot creature that is walking around the forests of North America? And let me put it this way. If it is found, Duke, what do we do? Okay, where do we go next? The game's over.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the game is literally over. And I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed, for instance, last night, my buddy Paul and I, 8 o'clock at night, we fill up the Jeep and we headed into the forest. And the only thing we were looking for is some eye shine.
Hmm.
And we got weirded out in a couple of places. You know, we got weirded out. All right. We never saw anything, but you driving down those roads and you get that all the hair standing up on the back end of your body. And it's like, yeah, this is probably not safe for us to go any further. And you turn around. You don't know why, but you're just listening to that little voice in your head. All
Yeah.
right. I never want that feeling to stop. Where I am in British Columbia, man, I never want to be able to stop on a weekend or during the week or wherever, daytime, nighttime, middle of the night. I don't care. I want to be able to have that opportunity to go into the forest and see something. And if we prove it exists, well, guess what? That changes the entire dynamics of the ball game. All right. And it's not going to be fun. There's a lot of political problems that happen when a new creature is found. All
Hmm.
right. And that's what I don't think a lot of people understand. Look, if I'm in the middle of, well, there was a situation in Oregon a few years ago where an endangered owl was found in
Yeah,
the
the spotted owl. Yep.
spotted owl.
Again,
Okay.
I can't buy into the whole forestry thing being a reason for it because look at what's happened in other countries. In the late 1960s, France and Germany both proclaimed it to be a endangered animal. So did Russia. China also admits they exist. They have a park set apart for them. They all control this information in various ways. First of all, France and Germany just kind of go, well, there's none in Europe anymore. It's an extremely endangered animal if they're even around. There aren't any. Well, Bigfoot in Germany proved that was wrong. In Russia, they allow the scientists to go out and look at it and they take it seriously, but they don't give them any budget to do it with. So they have to be publicly funded, although they're actually legit scientists and they can go out and look for it. They're not getting any money from the government to do it. And the same thing in China. China says, yes, they're real. And in China, you have to have a permit from the government to do any damn thing. So guess what? Even the best Bigfoot researchers over there don't get permits from the government to go out and do any research on it. Huh. So they've already admitted these things are real, but they've all got different ways of controlling the flow of information from coming out. In the US, we won't even admit they're real. We might be better off just going, yeah, it's some kind of big monkey running around the woods, and then everybody'd lose interest in it to a certain extent. But the reason they're not going to do that is because it's not a big monkey running around the woods. They're hominids like we are, hominins technically. They have a foot very similar to us. They're bipedal. According to scientific classification, anything that's anthropoid looking and walks almost exclusively on its hind legs, that's genus Homo. It's not an ape, like the glorified podiatrist likes to say. It's ridiculous. And the other thing is that even as bad as it would be for that to blow the whole narrative of evolutionary science that once upon a time the world was like Lord of the Rings, but we wiped out all the competition, we're the only survivors at this point. Maybe that's not true. There are other survivors, and the reason they survived is because they're so damn good at staying out of our way and hiding from us most of the time. And how did they get that good? Well, maybe they developed their paranormal abilities over long periods of time to get that good at hiding from us and staying out of the way all the time, regardless of how big they are. And, you know, I brought up on your show in one of my cryptid reports about how reports of them go all the way back to, you know, the earliest writings ever in Indian, Sanskrit, you know, 6,000 plus years ago. There's this report of them helping Lord Rama build this causeway and invade Sri Lanka, kill all the giants, and get his girlfriend back again. Well, what the hell, man? We've known about them all the time. You know, there's carvings on cathedrals in Europe of them. The Woodwoes and the Green Man in the UK, that's Bigfoot. Der Wildermann in Germany, that's Bigfoot. They're still getting reports of people seeing these things. They just like, oh, they must have been drunk because there's no Bigfoot in Europe. Oh, yeah.
Right?
So I think it has a lot more to do with the fact that there's actually the paranormal aspect is what's stopping it from coming out. Because other things I could see there'd be a way to, you know, accommodate, okay, this relic caveman like thing still exists. But when you start talking about, well, there's these 10-foot tall relic caveman like things can like cloak and do this other weird crap. Then all of a sudden people are like, well, maybe we shouldn't be telling them about that. And then that brings up the, well, if they're real, what else is real? And what else is Sasquatch linked to? And you already brought up the spaceships and the aliens. And when the spaceships show up, the Bigfoot run for cover. What's that all about? I know you were using it as an anecdote, but I've literally heard that a few times.
Yeah. I mean, Duke, you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, there is a section of the U.S. government that is completely X-Files. All right. And this is now being funded by the U.S. government. The focus right now is on UFOs, but when we look into it a little bit more in the 1,500-page report that just was dropped under a FOIA request just a couple of weeks ago, we now know that they were looking into all sorts of paranormal encrypted phenomena along with this. There is no getting away from that, you know. And look, the government wants to know what's going on. Do I think they have a good clue? Hell yeah, they do. Oh, yes, they do. But we don't. We got to figure out why. We got to figure out how this is happening, what is happening, and how is it happening. And until we get that opportunity, which is very, very slim right now, and I don't think in the current state of North America, between COVID, between shortages of everything, and or alleged shortages,
Yeah.
between what's happening between Russia, Ukraine, and now they don't care. They don't care. They're going to do as much as they can behind the scenes before it gets a little personal.
Well, that was a really polite way of saying that, Dave. I wouldn't have been quite so nice.
Well, I've perfected that.
Remember, you're not on radio right now. You can cut loose a little bit more.
Don't even get me started on it.
Yeah, we won't go into the politics thing here. We both have opinions about the idiots that are running things right now. So anyway, the other thing that you just mentioned, which is kind of hilarious because it's you're going like, well, I'm not a researcher. I don't do field research. But the other night we were out driving around looking for ice. I know it kind of sounds like boots on the ground, butt in the field to me, Dave.
Well, let me explain, okay? I am what you call a weekend warrior, and I have, when I go out in the field, Duke, I'm doing it for me. I saw two of these creatures in 2013, 2018, and 2017. Or 2018, we got chased out of a forest. 2020, we started having a little bit of communication at a gifting site. And I got to tell you, man, I enjoy it for me. I'm not here to, film the next Patterson Gimlin film. And even if I did, I would never release it to the public. Okay. I'm not here to break open the story. I just want to see one again. That's all I want. I want to see one. I want to see footprints. I want to, interact with it. See if I can interact with it. That is what I'm going out there. I don't care if I get a picture or a selfie or whatever with it. I really don't care. You
You're
know,
most likely to get photobombed, Dave. That happens to a lot of people.
well, and to be honest with you, I'm out there for purely selfish reasons. Okay? I'm not out there saying, we're going to go find the great big monkey in the forest or crap like that. I'm not trying to play the hero. All right? I go out in the forest because A, I enjoy it. I enjoy being out in the forest. B, I want to know. I want to see one again. But I don't care about the recordings or the statistics or the stride between footprints. If I see a track of footprints or if I see just one footprint, and I've only ever seen two footprints in my time I've been out in the forest. Only ever seen two. One was 18 inches, one was 15 inches. And the rest of them, I'm not there for anybody else. I'm there for my own eyes, my own. I want to know what it feels like, Duke, because I'm a very spiritual person. Okay. As you know, I don't talk about it a lot. I've talked to you a little bit about it privately, but I'm a very spiritual, intuitive type person. And I really enjoy the spiritual aspect of this creature. I'll give you an example. 2 weeks ago, my buddy Paul and I, we went out and we went to this area where we were over top of standing on top where the logging road was, and down below us there's a gravel pit. And I bring out my drum and I start drumming. See if I can create either some wood knocking or some sort of whooping or some sort of noise. And I get absolutely hit with this spirit in a good way. In a good way, Duke. I get hit with this spirit, and all of a sudden I hear in my head, you're not going to see anything here tonight. You need to go to the different area and you'll see some really cool things. And I knew where that area was. I have an area that's, anybody in my town can get to. It's very easy. And we go up this log, the road's all paved. And then when it goes gravel, you kind of go through this roller coaster type of road. And then you get to the one bigger hill and you stop right on the knoll. Well, I go there. And as we're pulling into that area, I just had a feeling I'm following my gut. On the way, we see the Northern Lights. So we're like, this is cool. And we go on top of that hill. I turn my vehicle around the direction of the Northern Lights, and we get out of the vehicle. And my buddy Paul looks west because the Northern Lights are east. My buddy Paul looks west and he goes, "What the hell is that up in the sky?" Well, guess what I was manifesting all winter? I really wanted to see Starlink. So we got Starlink flying up in the sky on the west of us. And on the right of us, we have this beautiful sky filled with Northern Lights. All because I listened to a spirit that said, "Hey, you're not going to find anything here tonight. Right? Let's take you to a different area. See what you see." And look what we got. We didn't get Bigfoot. We didn't get Dogman. Didn't get UFOs. But we got a couple of things that were very special to us to see. So, did Spirit wrong us? No, Spirit was very, very giving, I should say.
And accurate too. You drummed up a good response there, Dave.
Absolutely. So we went back last night to the gravel pit. I didn't bring my drum out this time. I didn't feel it was necessary. And just said, the spirit said, keep going. So we kept going. And we stopped in a couple of places. One place felt like we were being watched, but it felt like we were being watched, but they weren't close. We knew we were facing the vicinity of where they were, But the picture that I was given was that they were at least a mile, 2 miles away from us, and we couldn't get there. There's still too much snow in the hills here.
Yeah.
So you got to go with it. You know, we went up a different trail after that, and something didn't seem right. You know, and the further we got in on this trail, Paul stated, he's like, you know, I just don't feel right, man. And he goes, it feels like my spirit guide is trying to contact me. He goes, correction, it feels like my dad's energy. And I said, well, what's your dad saying? He goes, you two are idiots. Right? And I kind of laughed. I said, why? Because now you got to play the communication game. And I said, why? He goes, because there's something up there that you don't want to see. And my next follow-up question was, is it from the stars or is it from Earth? And Paul's words were on the ground. So now I know he's channeling whatever's coming through. Okay. Where do we go? He goes, when we get to the fork in the road, you don't want to go any further. He goes, you don't even want to be there. So before the fork, I knew where the fork in the road was. It was probably another third of a mile ahead of us on this logging road. And I found an area before that to turn around, and we left. Now here's where it gets a little creepy, Duke. My son was sleeping in the back seat of my Jeep. I have a 2-door Jeep Wrangler that I take into the forest. My son was sleeping in the back seat because he's 8 years old and he likes to come out with us. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, I love it when he comes out with us. How could I?
How cool
Right?
is that? Yeah.
Yeah. And it was funny because, dude, we were in the forest maybe 20 minutes and he was already passed out in the back seat.
The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. He's only 8.
Yeah, exactly. And so here we are. And here's what I like to notice. I look for patterns, Duke, because there's signals and patterns in everything. So we're debating, okay, we come down to the main road, and I said, do you want to go back into the forest? Otherwise, we're turning right, or are we going out? And out of the blue, my son wakes up, and in his sleepy voice, he says, it's time for us to go home. It's not safe here.
Yeah.
And Paul and I look at each other, say, well, that's the message we needed to hear. And as we're pulling out, Godsmack's Voodoo comes on my iPad or on my because I have my Bluetooth hooked up to my Jeep. And, Godsmack's Voodoo comes in, which is a very dark song. And it just all made sense. It was time for us to go. And you know what? A lot of people will say, Dave, that's a lot of woo, man. That's a lot of woo. But if you want to be safe in the forest, you got to follow those feelings, man. You got to follow what it says and what it's doing and what it's telling you. And those little messages, like my son waking up in the middle of, like, there was no reason for him to wake up at that moment to say what he said. I mean, you have to understand that I go with the signs, man. Hey, I could be completely wrong. Could have went up that hill and there would have been nothing there. Nothing. But I'm not taking the chance. It's not that I'm not brave, but for me, spiritually, it's telling me not to do something. I'm going to listen.
Yeah, and the most successful researchers that are still alive are the ones that follow their gut instinct. And things start getting spooky, they have enough sense to give ground. And I've been in that situation before. We had one area back in the woods behind where I lived, and Dave, it was a beautiful place, beautiful glade, almost looked like manicured. Like for some reason there wasn't much underbrush growing there or anything. Little, grass all over the place, and you'd go and take this turn on this trail, and it was about 100 yards, and you'd be on the other side of it. And on the other side of it was this dark, foreboding ditch with big trees growing up, with
Huh?
bushes on both sides. When you were going across the place that looked nice and friendly and inviting, you had
Yeah.
a feeling like somebody was watching you and they were going to kill you at any second. And when you
Right.
got past it, down to the spooky looking ditch, that feeling stopped. And it didn't matter what time of day or what time of year you were there. As soon as you started walking through that area, you got that creepy feeling. You were being observed. They were not happy you were there. And after a while, we just quit going through that section of the trail because it was too much. Every time you went through there, you could feel it. So those things are trying to tell you something. There is something there. It's either a live being or there's some kind of an entity that's attached to that area. They're not happy you're there. Either way, you're putting yourself in danger. Give ground and get out of there. And the Sasquatch are pretty damn forgiving that way. They'll generally warn you, make an aggressive display, bluff charge, go away, human, whatever. They don't usually just attack out of the blue. Other cryptids are not so forgiving. Be very careful with the dogman up there. They are not so forgiving.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. And you know what? I have been having major anxiety over the last oh 3 4 weeks that there is something that is coming regarding myself and Dogman. I don't know what it is. I don't know uh, what it's about, but I'll tell you, I feel absolutely skittish in thinking about this creature that very, very soon, man, I'm going to have that happen. And Duke, it's going to be there. I don't know if I'm ready for it, but hey, when it happens, it'll happen.
I wasn't ready for it, and I didn't even know it was happening. And this is a prime example of what we were just talking about, going into an area and getting that super creeped out feeling. Me and Mike are following this big ridge line, and there's structures all over it, huge ones. And when we went back and looked at the video afterwards, they were in the background watching us all the way along. We got down to the end of the ridge, and there's this beautiful meadow, very inviting and pretty looking, right next to a beautiful river with little ridges and trees around it, and a trail through the middle of it that looked like a cow path. It was indented into the ground like a cow path. There's no cows up there. It was all elk and moose using this trail so much. They had made it look like a cow path. So, of course, I'm immediately fascinated. Wow, they've made their own cow path. I'm going to film this. So I'm following it and I'm filming it. There's moose tracks bigger than my foot. Mike is kind of lagging behind. I get out into this one little cleared out area and I get this really creepy feeling. And this wasn't like the area's haunted or something. This was like you're in front of an audience. There's a ton of eyes watching you right now. And I decided I was just going to stand out there in the open and not move until Mike caught up to me. Turned the camera on, did a quick pan around, waited for Mike to catch up. He goes, "Well, where do you want to go from here?" And I said, "We're going to go back exactly the way we came." "Well, that looks shorter. This trail leads out into that big open area." And I'm like, "Nope, we're not going that direction. Going back where we came from." Because even though I hadn't seen anything, I had this feeling. That's a kill zone right there, where that trail goes right through that thicket and then goes out into the big open area. That's the kill zone. I'm not walking through there. So we turned around, we went back again. Now, when I got back, I had put the video up and never even noticed anything. And one of my one of the guys that shows up and researches occasionally, because he's way over in Washington State, so a bit of a drive to get over here, Shane, is looking at it and he goes, "Duke, it's timestamp 48:45. I think there's something standing in front of this one tree. It looks like there's something standing there." So I'm like, okay, I got to go back and look at it. Oh yeah, there was one that, when I was panning around to the camera, he just froze right in front of the tree trunk, but you could see his eye on the side of his face. He's obviously there. And if you look back over his shoulder, the one Shane didn't notice, there's the top of a brown one's head. You can see his brown hair sticking up in both of his eyes. He's looking over the other one's shoulder at me. Now I'm like, well, no wonder I felt like there was a lot of eyes on me. There was at least two. So I started looking through it. Which took about 3 days, and it was nightmarish because they were all over the damn place. There was probably close to a dozen of them, everything from little infants up to gigantic adults. And what really got me is standing in between two of them, there's a dog man. There's a tree like this, and he's sticking his nose around it looking at me. And he was one of the most obvious ones there. And I had no idea there was dog man up there. I had heard reports that they hang around a Sasquatch occasionally. Well, there's your evidence. But again, it's like, so now what do I do with this? If I run into this guy and they're not around, is he going to go after me? Or should I trust it because he's hanging around with them and they're non-aggressive, that he's not going to mess with me too? See, this opens up no whole nother can of worms. I was not not at all happy about I wasn't happy about being surrounded by Sasquatch, and having a dog man there didn't actually, like add any icing on top of that cake. So yeah, you got to trust your instincts, man. When you get that feeling, it's like, yeah, you're in a bad place, you need to go back or something. Trust it.
And you're exactly right. But it's amazing though how many people don't trust those feelings and trust their gut on safety and in just being out in the wild. Like, look, the forest, for the most part, is a dangerous place. Doesn't matter where you are in North America. All right? Bears, grizzly bears, moose, elk, deer, wolverines, badgers, snakes,
mountain lions,
lynx. Okay, there's a lot of animals out there that really, really want to kill you.
to put it politely.
They do. All right. Let alone now you're throwing in some idiot dog man and gugways and whatever else, puck wedgies and whatever else wants to rip your face off. I mean, that's just getting ridiculous.
Well, at least they don't all get along. Apparently, the dog man and the Bigfoot don't get along with the gugways. And the Bigfoot don't like the puckwudgies. One of my friends several of my friends are in communication with them. And one of them is actually doing a cultural exchange, and they're teaching this person words in their language, and the person is teaching words in English. And they can do simple sentences. And one of the things they asked them is, are there puckwudgies? And they said, yep. So what do you do when you see a puckwudgie? Me squash. So apparently that's the modus operandi. When the Bigfoot run into a puckwudgie, they just step on them and squash them. I was very heartened to hear that. Don't want all of them teaming up. Some of the little people apparently are very reasonable. And one of the things we've noticed in the areas where there seems to be high amount of little people activity, same area where there's high amount of Bigfoot activity. And it could be that they're living in those areas where there's Sasquatch around because they protect them. There's not going to be any big predators running around that can grab a little person when there's Sasquatch around. There's not going to be any big predators around. So as long as they get along fine with the Sasquatch, they seem to be fairly safe. And I have problems believing all this stuff is real until I see evidence. And I was up there at the ghost town of Coloma. I went down the cliff behind the hill where one of the lower levels of the mine emptied out, where they had all these slag heaps. And right there on one of them, there's little person tracks. They're the size of a toddler tracks. They're moccasins. There's 3 or 4 of them going across the top of this little ridge. And I had already been warned by the locals. They live in that area. There's little people there. Man, little people, little schmeeple, blah. Okay, well, there's their tracks right there, dumbass. You going to believe it now that you've seen their tracks? Yes, I'm going to believe it. I'm also going to leave the area immediately because I know enough about the little people around here to know that they're fairly dangerous. These ones are not friendly gnomes, so you don't want to piss them off. So again, every time you say there's no such thing, you better check yourself, because reality might decide to slap you upside the head and go, here's the evidence, dumbass.
Very true, man. I mean, how often do we have to sit there and say, there's no such thing as this and no such thing as that? The next thing you know, you're running into it face to face, and it literally wants to melt your face off. Drawer.
Yep.
I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I wanted to bring up here, and we touched on it already, is not only the lack of quote unquote evidence that's being presented has a lot to do with people that are interrupting it, the flow of information at different levels. And of course, you got the Bigfoot blockade going on, and you've got the deep state and yada, yada, yada. But there's actually agencies or groups that present themselves as public and helpful that aren't necessarily what they pretend to be. And I was just, before I had a chance to interview you, talking to Robert Boston, Bigfoot in Germany. And he mentioned that in 2005, he filed a report of his encounter in the Sierras with BFRO. And the original report he filed with them, and keeping in mind, this guy was in the hardcore part of the military for 8 years. they have to do situation report breakdowns after they're in some kind of engagement in excruciating detail, just like you would get from a detective or a cop. So his report was 6 pages long. Now he says they have actually modified that report several times. Now it's down to part of a paragraph that makes no sense. So again, what's the deal with BFRO pulling these shenanigans, editing the data and the evidence? What are they trying to hide? It doesn't agree with your opinion, so you're not going to let people find out about it. Why?
Why?
And for those that don't know, yes, this whole organization is deeply connected to Never Finding Bigfoot. The main man on the show is the head of the organization that has an opinion that it has to be scientific-y, and there's nothing scientific-y about the woo.
Look, I hate this topic.
Go ahead and rage, Dave. Rage.
Ooh, I hate this topic, and I know you're setting me up
Go
here.
into Goku mode. Super Saiyan.
You're that guy. You're that guy right now, man. I know what you're doing, and I don't like it.
Hey, didn't you used to do that with Mr. Witkowski? Turn around, fair play, Dave.
Look, I'm going to say this about the BFRO. Let me take a swig of my water here. The minute you start doctoring evidence, the evidence is tampered with, and it means sweet fuck all. Pardon my language.
Go, Dave!
Right? Honestly, when you are tampering with evidence, you are hurting not only your credibility, but the credibility of the entire field and the people who are researching in it. And shame on the BFRO, Matt Moneymaker, Bobo, and everybody who condones this type of effort. And look, there are some good people within the BFRO. Let's not kid ourselves. Okay. You know, I hate it when people put down the BFRO or MUFON, because we have to remember there are good people, Duke, who are involved with these organizations for one reason or another, but they're good people and want to do right by the community. But
Let me quickly insert that I agree with you on that point 100%. These people are citizen scientists. They're doing the very best they can with the knowledge and the budget that they've got to do anything. That's not who we're taking issue with. We're taking issue with the agenda setters at the top. And I know plenty of former BFRO that aren't BFRO anymore because of that agenda.
Absolutely. But when you are editing reports because you don't believe in that UFOs are tied to this, well, guess what? The U.S. government, all you have to do is listen to Lou Elizondo, and he'll tell you point blank, because he said it in other interviews, that the phenomena is all tied together. So you, Mr. Moneymaker, whoever you think you are, whoever your sources are, okay, better take a good look at what the government is researching regarding this phenomena. All right, that's first and foremost. Second, there is no science when you are conducting opinion. If you've already made your mind up that this is a flesh and blood creature, or like the weirdo in Vancouver who goes around, this is a monkey, we're searching monkey, you know, the big monkey, all right, the great monkey of North America. Okay, if you are that narrow-minded to be doing that, all right, stick to squatching. That's all you do is squatching. All right, now you got me pissed off, Duke. All right.
Damn it, Dave.
This was your plan. This was your plan. Look, Dr. Bob McGuire, who is my main scientist at Spaced Out Radio, and Duke can attest, this is a brilliant man. He has his name on over 20 satellites that we know of. He started a company called Hawkeye 360. All right. He has been as adjunct professor at the Virginia Tech University. He's now retired. He's been a part of the CIA, the NRO. Okay, he's part of the SCU, which is the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. All right, this is a man I go to my science questions with. I want to know, who does Matt Moneymaker go to for the science questions? Who does Squatchy Bobo go to for their science questions? Because when you're telling people that when tracks just end and the creature is walking perfectly backwards back into its same tracks, not ruining any dermal ridges and getting the little wrinkles, these little wrinkles, except on your feet, in perfect place on a backward step, you know they're full of shit. You know they're lying. Okay? The BFRO has to stop lying to the public and to the people. How do they do that? Number one, you don't edit it to suit your narrative. As soon as you edit a report to your narrative, there is zero science whatsoever. The minute you close the door on anything about this creature that you don't agree with, whether it's you don't agree with it being supernatural or like a lot of First Nations believe, an interdimensional type being, the only thing you are doing is hurting the entire field of study. I'm not a scientist, and I know this because what I have done is I have asked real scientists about how science is conducted regarding this, Duke. You know the scientists. I don't bring dummies onto Spaced Out Radio. I don't bring fake journalists onto Spaced Out Radio. I don't bring fake scientists onto Spaced Out Radio. Now, I'm not saying that my opinion is holier than thou, and I know this section of the reviews when people watch this, I can't wait to read the comments because I'm going to be probably chastised quite a bit. Okay. But if you're a member of the BFRO and you are putting up with the shenanigans that they are playing within the field, you are part of the problem and you should probably leave the community. You should probably leave because opinion means nothing in science. You're allowed to have an opinion. I have an opinion that I don't know what Sasquatch is. That is my opinion. There's Monkey Boy in Vancouver. There's people who believe that they're hunting an ape or Gigantopithecus or whatever you want to call it. You're allowed to have an opinion, but you can't close the door on where the evidence takes you just because you don't agree with it. And that is the biggest frustration I have. And if BFRO continues to do this, they're going to lose members. And when more members wake up to the fact that there is something very special that ties this creature and other cryptids into the paranormal and into the ufological world, well, my God, that's going to absolutely, stick a dynamite up the BFRO's asses, and they're going to blow up because they're not going to know how to handle it. The BFRO, in my opinion, has a lot of good qualities, Duke. They do. They got a lot of good investigators and good people who are working under their banner for whatever reason. But if I was somebody to go into that BFRO board of directors, I wouldn't last 2 minutes because I'd call them a bunch. You're not doing the entire phenomena any type of service for what you do. And look, if they never want to come on my show because of this, all right, go for it. I don't care, right? Because I'm getting real researchers who are not documenting or editing their reports in order to satisfy and appease a group of people who good people are paying hard-earned money to be a part of. Let's remember that. Hard-earned money. BFRO is not free, people. It's not free. Just like MUFON is not free. You pay to be a member, and you pay your good money to be a member, and you're getting the wrong information. And look, this isn't a shot at Matt Moneymaker or Cliff Barrickman, who I've had on the show in the past. These are smart guys. They are smart guys. But their intelligence in regarding to hiding behind the word science is absolutely incredulous. There's nothing scientific they are doing the minute a report gets edited.
Yep. And the other thing is, keep in mind this, how this, phrase science gets thrown around. The science means nothing. Follow the science, as if any subject is permanently closed to scrutiny. That is absolutely the reverse of how science works. Science, it lets you always scrutinize something, even something that's presumed to have been proven fact for hundreds of years. If you're really scientific, you can go back and look at it and go, wait, well, when I test this, it doesn't seem to be what you're saying. Here's my new theory. That's real science. So there's no doors are ever closed on doing more investigation into something when you're working with real science. That's the difference between science and the science. And let me point out something scientific-y about the track lines disappearing out in the middle of a field, and then somehow they backtracked. Well, there are some actual explanations. Maybe the edge of the field is within 20 or 30 feet, and he just jumped sideways into the woods. That's a possibility. It was way out in the middle of a field that's 100 feet in every direction. He ain't jumping to the wood line. How did he backtrack? How did he step in his own steps? And to make things even more difficult, if it was a human, maybe if they practiced doing it all the time, they could do it. Human straddle step, Sasquatch tightrope walk. So he has to swing that hip and bring that foot back behind him where he cannot see where his foot's coming down. Bigfoot cannot turn their heads as far back as we can. He has to turn his whole torso to see directly back behind him, which puts him in an impossible position to step directly back in a straight line and put that foot down in exactly the same print. So just because of their locomotion, it's even more impossible than a human doing it. And the other thing is, there's no limits on how often you have to go out in the field in order to be an actual researcher. Most of the actual researchers are citizen scientists that are out there not because they're on some grand crusade, but because they're curious and they want to know more about the subject. They've had a sighting, they've had an encounter, something got their curiosity, and they want to go out and see it for themselves. And these people are not funded. They're spending their own money and their own time to go out there and take a look at this. And if they're kind enough to bring some evidence back and show you, you should be doing backflips of gratitude and thanking them profusely for going through all that time, effort, money, and danger to actually bring you some damn evidence to look at. But instead, you're going to turn your nose up and go, you guys are liars. This is all fake. You're making it up. You're photoshopping it. A few people actually have the skills to do like a computer animation or Photoshop something that like couldn't be picked apart in 5 seconds. It's easy to tell if somebody's Photoshopped something. They got programs available on the internet anybody can access that'll tell you right away if something's Photoshopped or not. So all you negative Nellies of nincompoopery need to shut the hell up. And with that, let's go back to Dave.
Hi, I'm Dave. No, but you bring up good points. I can't even argue your points, Duke. I mean, the idea, the unconscionable idea that anybody in this field would feel that it is okay for any report to be doctored to suit a narrative is terrible. It's absolutely terrible, and it baffles me that anybody within the Sasquatch community would find this acceptable behavior. If you dabbled in an investigation and changed narratives in a police investigation, that's corruption. That's against the law. This is why I am very, very steadfast at my disappointment with the BFRO and the way they are handling their cases. And trust me, I've had investigators come up to me and state, this is what happened. I've had people email me and say, my report was edited from the original one that I have. Would you like to see the original email, Dave? Love to. How fair is that, Duke? There's no fairness in that.
No.
And it's disappointing because when you're on the top of the totem pole and you worked hard to get to the top of the totem pole, why would you all of a sudden think that this is proper behavior? There is no proper behavior with it, Duke. There isn't. And look, I'm not even a researcher. I have no skin in the game, guys. I have no skin in the game. What I do have is a lot of high quality people who come on Spaced Out Radio to tell their findings, both who believe in the woo and others who don't, who come on in and say, look, this is what I may believe, but I'm not closing the door on anything because we don't know what this is. If I were somebody out there, or if one of my listeners, and we get about 177,000 listeners a night, it's a good chunk. All right. Not big. Hey, we're not as big as a lot of radio shows, but I'll take that. We're one of the bigger shows. I have no confidence in telling my listeners to send any reports to the BFRO because they are editing their reports. And they don't even deny it. They don't. And here's the worst part about it is, Duke, they act like they don't care. They don't care because they're still getting their charge fees every year from people. There's still people signing up for the BFRO. There's still people who believe that the BFRO is the only way to go. No, it's not. If you want to clean up your image, stop using the word squatch, for God's sakes. Okay? You knew that was coming, dude.
Yeah, one of your classics, Dave. I was hoping you'd whip that out at some point, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
Of course, using the word Bigfoot is equally discriminatory, as they would point out our feet are in direct proportion to our body size.
Look, I don't mind Bigfoot, okay? It's just like Demi Lovato coming out saying, you can't use the word aliens because aliens don't like being called that, and it's a bad word, okay? In a human term, it's a bad word, okay? The word squatch.
Wait, what should we be calling aliens? Undocumented celestial invaders or something?
Yes. Extraterrestrials, off-worlders, ETs. Oh, excuse me. Look, I can tell you this, and I've argued with a number of people about this over the years, Duke. A number of people. I can't take your research seriously if you go squatching.
Mm-hmm.
Can't. That tells me you're a weekend warrior that doesn't give a care. All right? That you have no focus, that you have no understanding of what you're even looking for. And there's going to be a lot of people who disagree with me on that, and that's fine. That's fine. Okay? Dr. John Bindernagel, who I had the highest respect for, okay, told me to my face point blank that the word squatch literally destroyed 70 years of research. One word killed 70 years of research. Because the minute he would go talk to his colleagues, they'd be all about, oh, we went squatching, laughing. Okay. Also, Bigfoot is an American term. Sasquatch, most people don't even know where it came from. It's a First Nations term.
Yep.
Okay. And they don't abbreviate their terms. Right?
Mistranslation of a Native American term.
Okay. If for people who don't know, the word Sasquatch came from the Chehalis Indian band at Harrison Hot Springs. That's where it came, in Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia, which is approximately 1 hour, 45 minutes east of Vancouver along Highway 7.
And as far as I know, that's actually what they're called. Interesting side note, every tribe in North America has a name for the Bigfoot cryptid, and it's all their local names. Some of them actually have translations in their language because they're like a descriptor, like a mountain devil or something like that. Other ones, there's not a translation. Those are the ones you need to pay attention to, because those are the tribes that were actually in communication with them and found out directly from them what they call themselves. So if you're in an area where you've got local tribes that have that, and I mean, we're not sure what this means, but it's what they're called. Oh, that's what they call themselves. So if you're out in the woods, use that word. Hey
Well,
guys.
absolutely. Around here, the Sasquatch, the First Nations band, calls it squitch.
Mhm.
Squitch is their First Nations term. But when I hear people going out squatching, oh, you squatching this weekend? What the hell is squatching?
I think that's when you're out in
Such thing.
you're out in the woods and there isn't a toilet or anything, and you have to like do it by like sitting on a stump or something. That's squatching.
Look, if people, and this is where it bugs me, people get, we want to take these terms and we want to become offended by them. And a lot of people will say, well, there's a lot of people who say the word Bigfoot is offensive. To who?
Only the Bigfoot.
Until Sasquatch comes up to me and says, hey, man, don't call me Bigfoot. All right. My feet are proportionate to my body. It hurts my feelings. Let's not try to woke Sasquatch here. Let's not try to pull the Demi Lovato and woke the aliens. All right.
Hey, for all we know, the aliens may have started woke. That actually makes sense in a kind of twisted way.
Duke, I get you. All right. But the point that I'm getting at here, man, is if you want people to take your research seriously, be serious about it. Squatching isn't serious.
No.
Okay? It isn't. Anybody who goes out into the field to do proper research does not squatch.
Nope.
They have more respect for the field and the people that cut their teeth in it. It's like with hockey these days. You're a hockey guy. I'm a hockey guy. You hear people, oh, that was a great celly after the goal. What's a celly? There's never been a celly in hockey. It's a celebration. Okay, we don't have to, overanalyze and create these idiotic words. All right, we don't have to do that. We have enough time, a hard enough time as a community to get the mainstream public to take our research, our findings, and our knowledge seriously. Now you throw in squatching, and it just flushes it right down the toilet. Right down the toilet. All right. And I've had people, Jessica Jones came up to me, brilliant lady in the field. Well, I got a guy on my team. He's been squatching for 50 years and he doesn't have an issue with it. Yeah. How do I know he's serious?
And he wasn't calling it that 50 years ago since Bobo started that stupid term.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
No, I agree with you completely. People need to be a little bit more serious about, look, if you're just out there playing games and you want to, hang around by the campfire, sing Kumbaya and drink beer and belch and tell tall tales all night, that's all fine. But don't present yourself as an actual researcher. At the very least, if you're involved in Bigfoot research, you should be approaching it as a naturalist, a wildlife naturalist, documenting wildlife. What do? They go out, they find their subject, they track them, they figure out what they're eating, where they're sleeping, what they're doing, when they're doing it, they pattern them. This is exactly the same thing you should be doing with Sasquatch, just like you do with any animal. Hunters do this all the time. Okay, I'm going to go in an area, set up game camps. Where are the animals moving around at? What time of day are they there? Where's the best place to go sit and be able to bushwhack one coming down this trail? That's all patterning. The same thing applies to Sasquatch. They do things with a pattern. They're not totally random and chaotic. And the more you observe them, you can start seeing those patterns emerging. And then you talk to other researchers and they're seeing the same patterns. Aha, now you're starting to get viable information because you're having it vetted from more than one reliable source. They're not telling each other what they're doing. They're just going, hey, have you ever seen anything like this? Bingo, bango, and they'll tell you the same damn story of something that just happened to you 2 weeks ago. It's happened to them too. But they would never just randomly bring it up because it's such weird little information. Well, why does that matter? Well, apparently it does matter when it's happening to all these guys that are out there doing Bigfoot research. They're all having weird anomalies with their electronic equipment. They're all having things seemingly erased that should be on their camera. They're all having batteries dying for no reason. You don't see a pattern there, you're not paying attention.
Oh, I agree with you. I agree with you. But how do you change it? You now have a generation of squatchers. You have a generation of people who think that the BFRO is, the end all and be all to the field. How do you change it?
Yeah, again, they've got their nice little blockade in place there because they've got the mainstream media to bugle it out there. Never finding Bigfoot. Tonight at 8, we'll have a town hall where real people that had real encounters will talk about them, and then we'll waste your time running around the woods in the dark and whooping and hollering and beating on trees for the rest of the show and find nothing. Interesting side note, they actually had a couple of really talented, at least one, I should say, that I know for sure. I think they had more than one, really talented native trackers on their team who would quite consistently find tracks in areas they were going into to do their night research. When were those on the show? Did you ever see them on the show?
No,
I never saw them on the show.
I can honestly tell you that I spent I've watched an entire 17 minutes of a Finding Bigfoot show, and I've never gone back. It was so disappointing. So disappointing.
Well, the town halls are the good part of them because then you have real people telling their real stories, and then after that, it's all hokey baloney. I know somebody that was up in Canada at a town they came and they did the town hall. This person knows considerably more about the subject than any of the people on the show do. And they sat in the audience and listened to all the reports that people were giving. And then they followed them around afterwards when they went to go out and do their nighttime squatch reconnaissance. And guess where they went? To a park inside of town.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's all made for TV hokum. People need to quit thinking that they're going to get any actual evidence off of TV shows. Mainstream media is very tightly controlled and owned by the same people that make sure you don't want to know about this. They're trying to keep it from you. So why in the world would they let any actual research get out on TV? It's not going to happen. You want actual research, you go dig for it. And you find places like shows like Spaced Out Radio, where they have real researchers. Shows like mine, where I have real researchers showing their evidence. Tonight, we had one of our mutual friends on, Nate from WIBS, Washington, Idaho Bigfoot Search, and, legit researcher. He's got the stuff that, what he's collected so far, he shows it. There's no doubt in this guy is, making stuff up or anything. He's legit. And you don't have to be out there for umpteen years doing it and have reams of pictures of Bigfoot and audio recordings and stuff like I do. Everybody's at a different point on the journey. They have to start out somewhere. And just because they don't have a ton of evidence yet doesn't mean they're not legit. It means they just haven't had a ton of time in the field yet. The more you're out there, the more you're going to collect. So get your butt out there in the field, boots on the ground, butt in the field. Nathan Rio, who doesn't exist anymore because he got too popular and certain people didn't like him, and he's all done with his channel. He had Operation Go and See. He was encouraging all of his fans, get your own butts out in the field, go do your own research, see if you can find the same things I'm finding, follow the little guidelines I've given you to narrow your search down and see what you can come up with. Well, guess what? They're all finding stuff.
Yeah. I can totally get that, and as they should, and you hope that you do. I mean, I just don't know what the field wants. Do we really want to find this creature? Do we? What happens if we do find out this creature, and there is something severely supernatural about it? How does the Bigfoot world react to that then?
Well, a lot of the flesh and blood guys' heads explode, and I'm going to be sitting right here eating popcorn watching it. But other than that, that's up to people to be up to speed on what reality is and quit eating garbage all the time and thinking it's food. It's not. I'm sorry that you've had the wool so thoroughly pulled over your eyes, or in the case of Seraphine log, you've had some kind of a resinous goo smeared on your eyes and they're glued together so you can't see what reality is. But look, at some point you got to grow the hell up and realize that all of the garbage you're being fed is just garbage. It's not just Bigfoot and UFO and ghosts and stuff like that. There's other aspects of the quote unquote scientific community that are doing the same thing. Look at out of place artifacts. If they find something in the archaeological community that doesn't agree with their timeline, they just ignore it or they ridicule the scientist out of existence. Good example, they just found tracks in stone down in New Mexico, human looking tracks. Okay, how old are they? Well, interestingly, in this layer of mud, there were pollen samples and samples of little seeds that they could radiocarbon date to tell how old they were, both above, below, and in the same strata that the track line was in, which apparently dates the tracks back to about 24,000 years ago. Keeping in mind, humans weren't supposed to be here then. They were supposed to have come over after the last ice age and the last time that Beringia was available to go trotting across to come over here to North America. Well, this puts them here at least twice as long ago as that. And that's the same timeline when the Navajo say they were already here and they were busy chasing the giants off the continent 2 ice ages ago. They chased their butts back through Beringia into Siberia, according to them. So I tend to listen more to the Navajo than I do to the dogmatic science at this point because their narrative seems to make more sense.
Very true. Very true, man. I mean, look, this great debate is going to continue throughout, Duke. It really is going to continue throughout until we start getting some answers. The only thing that I ask for in return, and look, I can get fired up just like anybody, but the only thing I ask for in return from people out there is use your brain. Real research doesn't edit reports. Real research does not squash. Real research can admit whether or not what they are looking for. Real research doesn't use opinions as scientific fact. And, there's a lot of brilliant people out there that really, really want to learn more about this and be part of the solution instead of being part of the problem. And that's where we got to get to. Let's all be a part of the solution, man. And we can't do it when giant groups like BFRO are, editing reports or anything like that. We just can't do it that way.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the best thing we can do in the short term is, all people of good conscience that actually want to know what the truth is and will follow the evidence no matter where it leads. I'll start talking and communicating with each other. I'll start sharing information. I'll start working together. Forget about the rest of the clods. They're irrelevant. All they're going to do is waste your time or throw roadblocks in your way. So just deal with the people that have an open mind, that want to know what the truth is. And sometimes the truth is not very appetizing. I've had some of my pet theories blown to pieces, and it's a really bitter pill to swallow when you're fairly sure about something and then there it is in abject reality. You were wrong. Now you have to change your whole theory. You have to approach it from a different, let me reference something I was talking about earlier, Dogman. I did not think there were any dogmen in this region of the Rockies. There are virtually no reports from around here. I was willing to go on record and say, I don't think there's any dogmen around here. I said it several times. Then last summer, I get one on video. Okay, well, there goes that theory. Clearly they're around here. Got one on video. Got to change that idea.
I just wish we would keep a little bit more of an open mind, man. That's all.
That's it. And that's really simple. You don't have your mind so far open that, your brain falls out. But listen to what people tell you, and I'll quote Bindernagel too. One of the things he told Wes Germer on Sasquatch Chronicles is, if somebody comes up to you and tells you they saw the Jolly Green Giant in their backyard, maybe it was misidentification, right? Or they had a few too many hits off the whiskey bottle. But if you got 3, 4, 5 people in the same area that don't know each other, all telling you that they've seen the Jolly Green Giant over there's something going on. You need to go research and see what the hell it is they're looking at. It may not be actually the Jolly Green Giant, but they're seeing something because they're reporting it. And the thing that breaks my heart with the BFRO's blockade on information is, some of these people, their sighting is so terrifying, it turns their world upside down.
Yeah.
And then all their friends tell them they're crazy and it breaks their heart. So the last thing that they've got is, well, at least I can file the report and tell the rest of the world, potentially somebody will believe it, and they'll at least hear what actually happened to me. And then they get their heart broken again because these ass clowns won't actually file the report. They want to edit it.
And you said something very important there that a lot of people take for granted, Duke. And that is that for a lot of people, their sightings are very traumatic. It doesn't matter whether it's Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, ghosts, whatever. They didn't want this to happen. And it scared them to the point where they can't even sleep at night. They're afraid to go camping anymore. They're afraid to sleep in their home because they saw the face in the window. They're scared to be wherever they are because of it. And when you have something that traumatic, and anybody, doesn't matter whether it's a BFRO, anybody goes and edits your post and are acting like, no, that didn't happen. No, that's impossible. We don't research that. That didn't happen because it doesn't happen that way. Okay. That's where people lose faith. Okay. The experiencers, and I recently did a report in San Francisco at UFOCon 2022 about the experiencers are becoming the forgotten souls of ufology. We could say that they are becoming the forgotten souls of the cryptid world as well. Because, yes, most people only have anecdotal evidence, probably 95%. We need their stories to try and get closer to where we could find this creature, its habitat, its roaming area, what's it eating, what's it pooping, what's it doing. And if we continually shoot down reports from good, hard people who work hard every day, who never asked for this to happen. And that's the big thing. Okay? Experiencers, Duke, never asked for it to happen. Yet here they are, thrust into this situation, a situation that they want nothing to do with. And we are screwing them over by editing reports, telling them, no, it didn't happen that way. It couldn't have happened that way. It's impossible. Really? Were you there? Were you there? Did you see my fear? When I had an extraterrestrial encounter on April 15th, 2014, with a young lady named Samantha Mowat, who claims to be a lifelong ET contactee, and I believe her. She's a friend of mine. When I had people on a couple of different shows where I was telling that story come up and say, you're lying, that didn't happen, that doesn't happen. Oh, well, tell me where Mission, British Columbia is. Number one. Number two, tell me the street it happened on. Were you there? Were you in the forest with us when we saw the alien? Were you there? Because the only thing I know is Samantha was there and I was there. So if you were there, what did you see? Tell me. If I'm lying, tell me what you saw. Tell the world the truth. People can't, because we want to base everything on what our own personal beliefs are. That's the danger of it. There's no science there. None.
Yep. The other thing I want to extrapolate a little bit more on what you said too, and people that haven't had these experiences don't think about this. A lot of these experiences are very unpleasant. The people that have them are extremely traumatized. They may never go back to a normal that they were before these things happened. And where do they go to get help? You know, if you're struggle snuggled and you've been molested or something, you can find a group of other people that have had that experience, and you can communicate with them and you can work out, how are you dealing with this? You guys have the same issue. How are you dealing with it? There is no Bigfoot Experiencers Anonymous. There is no UFO Abductees Anonymous. There's no place to go with this. There's no support groups. And, you know, I've experienced that. My first encounter was frickin' scary as hell and traumatic. I had hysterical amnesia. For 2 years, I didn't remember what happened. All I knew is I wasn't going into the woods for some reason. And I used to like live in the woods. I was in the woods all the time if I wasn't in school or doing some job or something. That's what all I did. And all of a sudden for 2 years, I wouldn't go in the woods. And then one day I remembered what actually happened. And then it was another 2 or 3 years that I didn't want to go in the woods until I was extremely heavily armed and had other extremely heavily armed people with me to go in the woods. And it took years to get over that. And did I have any kind of group to interact with? You know, any Sasquatch Observers Anonymous? You know, some of these people, they're not it's not that they've had an encounter, it's not that they've had an experience. They're victims. They've been literally victimized by the horrible thing that's happened to them. It's turned their whole world upside down. Just as surely as somebody that went over to a war in a foreign country, saw their buddy blown to bits right next to him, and have shell shock PTSD from it, except they can get help for it. But if you got abducted by an alien or you got roared at and chased out of the woods by a Bigfoot or something, well, screw you, buddy. You're on your own because that shit's imaginary.
Yeah, exactly. We keep shooting our own.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
It's like stepping over $100 bill to pick up a quarter on the street.
Good analogy. Yeah. And who knows better about these things than the people who have experienced them? All of your, you know, theories derived from years of reading books are pretty worthless in the face of having the actual experience. How do you know that anything that you've studied is true until you've had an experience with them yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of, go ahead, Dave.
No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, speaking of experiencing, here's another example. You've had on and off experiences with aliens and UFOs and whatnot, but it isn't like it's happening every day. It was like 3 years since the last time you actually saw UFOs until very recently you were doing your live show, stepped outside during a break, and there's three of them going overhead. Well, how long had that been? It's not like it's happening every day.
No, I mean it was pretty ridiculous. I mean, I hadn't seen a UFO in 4 years.
4 years. There you go.
And so I had gone outside to take my dog out for a pee during one of my breaks during the show. So for a lot of people who don't understand, I have a beautiful radio studio inside my house. And so I run them outside and I see these three dots, you know, looking like three golf balls in the sky, pretty low, silent, and they're all in one straight line. And, you know, it was like maybe half an inch apart. Okay. From my sighting.
Yeah.
Okay. Half an inch apart, where it was, and they just went from the southwest to the northeast. And I watched him go through a cloud and then just continue on. And I was like, okay, cool. About time I saw something.
That's one of those ideal sightings. They're far enough away. It's a safe sighting. They're not right there trying to drag you on board a ship or something. Okay, that's cool.
Give me some aliens, man. I want those aliens.
You've got aliens, Dave.
You got that right. Don't need to have little aliens every now and again, man. Okay.
The gray neighbors may come to visit. Just make sure you're careful when you go out there and do any dogman investigation. Always have somebody else with you.
Yeah, I never, in my area, I never go out alone, man. Never go out alone. I still don't have my hunting license, so therefore I can't carry a rifle or a shotgun. And so I never ever go out alone. Never. It's just, but you don't know when in my area when a mountain lion or a grizzly bear or a black bear is going to sneak up on you, let alone dogman or Sasquatch.
Yep.
But the reality is the chances of a dogman or Sasquatch sneaking up to you over a bear or a mountain lion, well, you have more opportunity of that happening. And
Yep.
I just don't want to. I don't want to be putting myself in a predicament where, like I love taking my 8-year-old son out looking for the creature with me, and I don't want to put him and I in danger. I don't need any of that David Politis stuff. I don't need anything strange going on like that,
Hmm.
So
Right on.
you have to. It's everything is, and you know what? The minute you make commitments to going into the forest, the first commitment you have to make is to yourself. Okay? You have to make the commitment to safety for yourself. Like when I'm on the road in the forest and I'm looking around, the first thing I do, Duke, is I find myself checking the clock every few minutes. Okay. I want to make sure, I want to make sure that, am I having missing time? How would I react if all of a sudden, I look at the clock and it's 9:15 at night. But the next time I look at the clock, it's 4:45 in the morning. What do I do?
That would be very scary because you don't know what happened and a big chunk of time is missing.
You got that right.
You can be grateful you're still alive and hopefully intact, but you still don't know what happened during that chunk of time. Very,
Yeah.
very disturbing.
Yeah. It's extremely disturbing. And you don't know.
No.
You don't know.
Well, Dave, it's been an absolute blast having you on. And was there anything else you wanted to talk about, or?
You know what, Duke? I just want to say, you know what? For all the conflict and everything that there is in the BFRO and within the Sasquatch community, let's always remember first and foremost that we're here all looking for the same thing. We're all here looking to find this creature, have an experience with the phenomena, and try and figure something out. Lose the attitude and just enjoy what we have the opportunity for. Let's enjoy it a little bit more. All right. This isn't a competition. Nobody's getting rich. Even if you find Sasquatch, nobody is getting rich. So just chill and relax and enjoy the nature of it all. That's the beautiful part about what we do, man. And that doesn't mean and doesn't have any value towards attitude at all. Just go enjoy.
Right on. Well, there you go. Some great and wise words from a man of truth, integrity, and honor who has the valor to champion the woo crowd, regardless of how many arrows of outrageous fortune are hurled in his direction. And on top of that, he's got a great voice. He has the vocal equivalent of rich Corinthian leather, mellifluous tones, amazing. And so you should, between the two virtues of Dave being a straight shooter and knowing what the hell he's talking about and having a really great radio voice, swarm on over to Spaced Out Radio and check out his show. It's on umpteen nights a week. It's on during the day, even Jessica Jones and other people are doing spots for him, taking over the weekend shows. And you can find Dave on Monday through Friday at the same time slot every night, which is what, 9 Pacific for your show? Yeah. And I'm used to 10 because I'm in the mountain time zone. And again, if you want to hear the team up of Dave and Duke every Tuesday and Thursday during the third hour after Swamped Out Radio, when Swamp Dweller does a spot on there, I come on and share some more really bizarre cryptid stories. And I always attempting to make Dave's head explode by somehow tying them into British Columbia where he lives.
I don't know how you do that.
Well, I haven't been able to do it every time, but I'm getting pretty close to a good average on that one. You just live in a really great place. It's got tons of weird cryptid stories in it. The only thing you don't have is the Loveland frog and a few of the one-off cryptids that are in the lower 48, but you got all kinds of Partridge Creek monster, There's some other scarier stuff up there anyway. So with that, Dave, I'm going to thank you again profusely for being on the show, and I look forward to having you on again in the future. Once again, I'm going to throw out the invite. Drag your butt on down here to Montana, and I'll take you out to my research area this summer. Spend a weekend hanging around and communing with the local Sasquatch, who are friendly and have quite the sense of humor.
I promise you, Duke, I will do my best because we're not really that far apart.
No,
You know?
well, compared to how far apart I am from a lot of other people I'd like to get out in the field with, we're actually close. So,
Yeah,
yep,
exactly.
yep.
Exactly. And I'd love to get you up here too once these restrictions kind of calm down and show you around up here as well.
Right on. I'm sure I would love it. Our both areas of the country we live in are very similar looking, actually. So that's, we're not like we're going to Guatemala and going to stomp around a jungle and get stung by poisonous bugs and bit by snakes and fall in the ocean and get mauled by a great white shark or some frickin' thing.
Yeah. Happening on Dave's watch. That's not happening on Dave's watch.
Right on. Just stay away from the ocean. Everything in there doesn't want you there. It's either going to try and throw you back out again, like the waves do. They're trying to give you a hint. You're not supposed to be in the ocean. They're trying to push you back out again. The riptide, that's the evil bouncer that goes, "Oh, you want to come in the club? I'll drag you in the club." And then he drags you and works you over. And then when he gets you in the back room, then there's those other guys that are like, "Oh, he's already been stomped. Let's eat his remains." Those are the sharks. So stay out of the ocean. I agree with Dave on that one. I used to be a diver. I didn't like diving in the ocean either. Too many huge things that'll eat you. Stay to lake diving and river diving. And anyway, again, sorry to keep dragging it up, but thanks for being on the show, brother. And looking forward to having you on again.
Anytime, my friend. Thank you so much.
All right. Everybody else, remember the usual abjurations apply. Always use common sense. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people unless you have to be. Do not punt the puck, would you? Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't flip off the mountain giant. And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiees. Night, everybody.